the items for finance, so we'll go ahead and move into administration. The first item that we want to present to you is a presentation from Ben Sims with Grid United. And Ben, if you'd like to come up, and we'll go ahead and move your presentation to the PDF. Some of you have already met Mr. Sims with Grid United, but this is an opportunity that he wants to present to you all. Their company is looking at establishing a transmission line that would be coming out from Ward County up to El Paso. And so, no, the next one, it's a PDF. So if you want to just go to the desktop, Rebecca, that's okay. So as we're pulling that up, Ben, if you'd like to go ahead and start, you may.
Sure.
Oh, and the microphone's not on, so don't even worry.
Okay.
About that.
Great. I'll project. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've met some of you. This is an introductory meeting. It's an opportunity to present our company and a project we're working on that, as the chair mentioned, would connect an overhead transmission line from far west Texas into El Paso. And I'm going to try to keep my comments short because I'd like to take questions. And the reason to be here is to let folks know what we're
working now. There it is. It's on.
Okay. I think that's Judge Evans.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think it's important to emphasize that we're early in the process, and so we're working on a policy of a process of stakeholder engagement and making sure folks know what we're working on. So I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity and forward to answering some questions. Grid United, we're a company that's actually based in Houston. We're 40 people. We've been in business since 2021, so we're a fairly young company. However, the folks who founded the company have decades of experience developing overhead transmission lines all across the country, as well as other types of power projects, renewable projects, the like. We can keep going here.
Okay.
And the project that we have about 6 projects that are in very early stage development across the country. And the project that I want to introduce you here today is called Pecos West. And as the executive director mentioned, it is a project that would run just about 200 to 250 miles from West Texas, likely Ward, Reeves County area, due west into El Paso. And I want to emphasize that map on that slide is conceptual, and so the detailed routes have not been determined, and that would be determined through a very intensive process of working with stakeholders and the Texas Public Utility Commission to decide what an optimal route would be to connect those 2 points. I think taking a quick step back, which is what's the rationale for building projects like this, and why did our company come into being to develop projects like this? We're fully 100% privately backed by an investor in Houston. And I would say there's 3 main reasons to develop projects like this. Transmission fundamentally serves a reliability service, and that is we expect the lights to come on when we flip the switch, and that promise has been starting to come into question, and it's going to require investment in new transmission lines as well as maintaining existing transmission systems. So fundamentally, this project provides reliable backup for West Texas and for El Paso. There's also the question of lower costs. I think that's a big part of the equation. When people are think about their electricity, they're focused on how much is it going to cost and what's my bill at the end of the month. And in order to have an efficient transmission system with low cost, you need the ability to move power across distance. And so that's the second reason. I think the third reason, which is important, and this is probably a very good map to demonstrate that, is that in addition to reliability and cost, consumers increasingly want clean energy, and this is often renewable energy. And one of a very large market for renewable energy exists right here in far west Texas. And so one of the things that this project would enable is the ability for El Paso to bring in clean wind and solar power from far west Texas. And so I think it's important to remember those three elements when I think about why we would go about developing this project. And I think I'll leave it there. At the very end of the presentation, there's a timeline. And I want folks to appreciate these projects take a very long time. Historically, they've taken a decade. We think it's too long. And so we're trying to develop projects more quickly because we think they're very important. But still, if the project goes as planned and we have received the approvals that we require, we would construct the project at the end of the decade and then be in service in early 2030. The next steps are we are working closely with stakeholders, including El Paso Electric, and we would look to make a filing with the Texas PUC, which would summarize the projects and the reason and the benefits that I laid out towards the end of this year. That would start a fairly involved approval process that would include stakeholder engagement and other steps along the way. So I'll stop there and love to take any questions you have. All this information is in folders that are on your desk, as well as my business card that has my cell phone in it. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question.
Please.
Are you in competition with El Paso?
No, so we're working closely with El Paso Electric and have been. We're developing this line as a private company. And we think but we're working closely with the utility. We think it makes a lot of sense when the project's built that this becomes part of El Paso Electric system and that they maintain it or own it potentially. So to answer the question, yes, we're working with them closely.
No, we're the same.
So this isn't a system like other cities in Texas where customers can choose to use El Paso Electric or you?
Great, that's exactly right. No, this would.
Well, why not?
We're not in the retail power business. I guess it would provide options to consumers in the sense that the power that they are using would be increasingly renewable and clean energy because they would now have access to this new market that they don't have access to today. But to answer your question, no, we're not a new provider in that sense.
And Chair, if I may, I think that with the timeline that they have established, there is a potential for the public sector to be involved on the front end in terms of the possibility of shoring up opportunities for landowners if they were to look at renewable energy, if they wanted to utilize their land in that manner, whether that was through solar or wind. Oftentimes what had been discussed previously is that if folks wanted to do that and make that available, there wasn't a transmission line to sell their energy to. So now with this possibility, that could happen. And I think that this is just important for us to take a look at to see how we would want to be involved in this process to help develop this along, because there are definitely workforce opportunities and the economic development, I think, could be substantial. But we would have to be careful with that in terms of any kind of environmental aspect that would be taken into consideration.
And I did like that. Great. I really appreciate that. I'd also like that we are looking to, our company is always looking for new employees. And this is before we get to construction, in which there'd be many jobs to construct the line. But developing the line, we are going to look to recruit locally for folks who could potentially assist as interns with the possibility of moving to full time. So I'm planning to do that at UTEP and potentially other schools should it make sense in the El Paso area.
I think I'd like to mention the rural perspective. We're talking a lot about El Paso, which is huge and the biggest part, but he didn't mention that this line would also go through Culberson and Hudspeth County is the proposition. So we've met with Ben a few times and I want to keep in mind, how is this going to impact rural? You know, how is it going to assist rural? Because quite frankly, I just keep hearing how it's going to help El Paso and everybody else, which I want you guys to get help. There's no doubt. But I want to really consider how is this impacting our rural community where we just keep seeing resources pulled out of our communities. So we want to make sure that we're taking into consideration.
Well, and I think
as well.
that's where that would come into play in terms of potential economic development opportunities for your constituents in your region, not just place the line and no one benefits from it. But that was, so I think that when I met with Mr. Sams, I kind of thought of very many different opportunities that maybe we could look at that would be most beneficial to our rural areas, but that is something definitely that we would want to assist with at the discretion of the board.
Right. And I think as the judge points out, it's important to remember too that while this enables power to flow into El Paso, this transmission lines would allow the power to flow in both directions. So there are cases at times of day that we expect the power would move in the other direction. For folks like the judge who are living out in West Texas, there's huge development of oil and gas production and other types of industrial production. And what comes along with that, for better or for worse, is a lot of what I would call inefficient power generation. This is things to keep lights on. And in a lot of cases, the grid in West Texas hasn't kept up to support that development. And so you have lots of small little generators that often run on diesel power that, create all sorts of issues. And so another part of the rationale for the project is there are times in which power could flow in the other direction to West Texas to enable more of that operation to run on grid power, which would be a cleaner alternative. So there's that aspect as well. But totally appreciate
Just keep the little guys in mind is all I have.
No, yeah, totally.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Where's the origination of the power?
No, that's a great question. So this project the technology is it's called a direct current transmission line, which means it's highly controllable. So these projects exist connecting Texas out to the large grid in Texas to other grids. They're just much smaller, and power plants can schedule power to move across the tie in both directions. So in some cases, to answer your question, power, as I mentioned, could be scheduled by El Paso Electric, for example, to move power to support residences, businesses, industrial operations in West Texas, using a fleet of generation. And in other cases, predominantly renewable power, which exists in West Texas and was getting built out further, would flow west on the line and serve El Paso Electric customers. And so it would be both of those sources of generation, depending on times of day and prices, et cetera.
So you're not a generation source. You're just, you're going to be a jump between, I guess.
That's right. We provide the transportation, is how I think about it.
Transportation of the power. Okay.
Right. And so we would, we wouldn't decide, what type of power is moving for that matter. The trend in West Texas has been strongly towards renewable power, and we expect that to continue.
I was just wondering if Judge Urias has a new generation system there in Culberson County.
Yeah, who is generating the power?
That's a great question. So in West Texas, for example, they're and I'm thinking of Reeves County, Ward County, Pecos, Culberson. There are lots of smaller independent renewable generators. So these are when you if you fly over that part of Texas, you'll see tons of windmills and increasingly solar plants. And so a lot of those projects actually are owned and operated by small developers. And then they're also much larger developers that also own those projects. Anyone from a company called Apex, which is a US company, to a number of European companies own the renewable power. And then in El Paso Electric owns generation within the system. It's a different market because El Paso is what's called a vertically integrated system that El Paso Electric owns everything, the transmission, the generation. In West Texas, it's split up, and so you have different companies that own generation and transmission.
And in the summary, it says it'll be a valuable link between ERCOT. So what is that link? Is that just a transmission link? Are they just outputting data from West Texas to ERCOT and to El Paso Electric, or is there an actual connection between the grids?
Yeah, no, sorry, there would be a physical transmission line between the grids. If you go down one slide, you sort of see this.
So I guess there's a little bit, this is maybe a very naive question, but I mean, ERCOT has definitely had its issues with energy, and so will they be able to pull energy from the El Paso Electric grid in those serious weather situations?
That's a great question, and I think it's an important one, and it's a reason to use the technology that our company would use to connect these two grids. It's called direct current. It's highly controllable, and so if you were in a situation, which we were in Houston a couple of years ago with Storm Uri, where the lights were out for several days, El Paso could serve, to the extent it had power available, it could serve as a backup to support the ERCOT grid, which is shaded color here. But to the extent that both systems were short power, what essentially would happen is this line there'd be effectively a breaker that would come down and cut off, such that no power would move in either direction.
Which would be in the control of El Paso Electric.
It would, exactly.
Okay.
So they, and this has actually happened with some of the other existing ties, that they're only effective to the extent that there's generation available on one or the other side when it's needed. And so if it's not, there's not the ability for one system to destabilize the others.
Okay, and this is just more of a rhetorical question. It's not really for you. I think there's a number of people in here who are regulators. And if this it's more of a PUCT question, but if that was to be the case and El Paso Electric was to alleviate ERCOT in some situation that they needed it, what would be the financial benefit to the ratepayers here in El Paso? Again, that's not a question for you to answer, but just putting that in the minds of the people who do have regulation over that. I will not be one of those people in a few years. The other question is, so this kind of a totally different step back. I'm saying a lot of this is renewable, and your conversations with El Paso Electric. So El Paso Electric has a lot of solar energy that they do through a different rate. People have to sign up for it. There's a wait list. Would this energy also be processed through that? Has there been a conversation?
It's a good question. That level of detail we have not had yet. Because this would be a fairly large connection to their system. My guess is that it would be treated as just a new source of power that is predominantly renewable and would not involve any separate tariff. And so El Paso Electric, and as well as lots of utilities, have very aggressive goals to decarbonize. El Paso, that is, have clean power. So I think El Paso Electric's current goal is to have clean renewable generation for all of its power by 2050. And that becomes, without diversity in terms of where you get your power, it becomes harder to supply that.
Because an option is, if they do add it, Judge, into that, I forget what they call it, something we had requested from El Paso Electric when they increased their solar generation, is that they would take a portion of the people on the waiting list that were considered low income and kind of qualify them ahead of everyone else. If they do this with this energy, an option is to say a portion of these should go out to the rural areas. They should have preferential.
That's great for a couple hundred people, but the rest of our communities are serviced by Rio Grande Electric, which I believe is not tied into this.
Yeah, no.
That's right.
That's true.
I have Rio Grande Electric.
Yeah.
personal.
Right, most of Rio Grande system is on the ERCOT side. Right, so they would benefit to the extent the power would be flowing east, but you're exactly right.
Anyone else? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And if we can, we'll just look at some potential follow-up items with you all as this moves along, or maybe we can even look at forming a committee. If that's something y'all would like.
I think a committee would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Just add another one.
Yes,
Just how big is it?
how many more committees? Let's see. Okay, so our second agenda item is going to be the HERO program, and that stands for the Highway Emergency Response Operator Program. And we do have Frank Hernandez here with a program to talk to you all about it and let you know what is available to you. And they are coming a little bit kind of close to the end, but they're looking at renewing this partnership as well. So I'll turn over to Frank.
Thank you, and thank you all for having us here. My name is Frank Hernandez, and I am the project manager for the local HERO program in the El Paso area. Throughout the state, we do have multiple programs currently in San Antonio and Austin, and we are looking to expand into some of the other communities in the Corpus Christi area, the Waco area, the Dallas area, obviously. Over here on my right is Martin Morales. He is my training manager, and as you see, that's the uniform that we are wearing out there. Obviously, bright is life-saving, hopefully, but that is the uniform that we wear. So if you see us on the highway, please be careful with us. Let's go back to the right here, Highway Emergency Response Operator, the acronym obviously HERO. More importantly, here is the number 790-4376. That is the number that you can reach us at here locally in case you need our services. Our services are free. So we will be able to provide roadside assistance in any type of emergency situation that you are on the shoulder, caught in an accident, run out of gas, blow out a tire, and I'll get into a little bit more detail on that here shortly. Next slide, please. Our mission, obviously, again, is to provide roadside, a safe roadway, clear, safe passage for the motoring public, as we are a TxDOT contractor for the most part. That is the number one initiative, making roads safe for everybody to use out there. Here is where we're at currently. We have been here in the El Paso area since June of 2020. Austin was the first program that TxDOT brought on board, and they started back in 2017. Currently, we work Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And on Saturday and Sunday, we work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Weekday routes, we cover 5 routes. On weekends, we only cover 3. These are initiatives, again, passed down by TxDOT to us, and this is the funding and the program, how they want to manage that. So, you know, we respond to their requests, and this is what they wanted. We do work out of a 911 center for the most part. Some of you may be familiar with the Horizon TxDOT yard out there. They do have a small 911 center. I call it 911. It's Transvista Management Center. That is our communication center. And again, we are TxDOT funded. So TxDOT funding obviously ties our initiatives into what their program, what their goals are again, and that's providing the roadside safety, keeping the roads clean, and keeping the lanes open for the motoring public. Next. These are the routes that we patrol here locally currently right now, Monday through Friday. The black route that you'll see coming at about a 45 starts at Horizon and goes all the way to Vinton for the most part. The green route is 54, which will go from McCombs all the way down to 375. And the orange, the red looking route is at Trans Mountain, that we go over the mountain, come back all the way around to the downtown Paisano exit. And then that's where we flip back to go back on patrol. Currently, those are the 5 routes that we patrol. On the weekends, obviously, we only have 3 people that are out on the road, so we will minimize some of those routes and stay in the more heavily congested areas, which is obviously I-10, especially with the construction that we've got going on right now. The services that we provide, we carry extra fuel. We're able to assist you with a tire change. We're able to assist you with a battery jump in case something is electrical. We carry cooling water for cooling. Obviously, in the summer, it gets pretty hot out here. We're able to push you. We're able to escort you off the highway. We do have a tow truck, as you'll see down here on the bottom. We do not tow. We will only relocate, because the goal, again, is to keep those lanes of travel open. When we work with PD, Fire, SO, and some of these incidents, Our goal again is to get that vehicle out of the lane of travel once the investigation is conducted, and that we can open up the lanes, kick that queue from building up to a mile or 2 miles behind us, and get that road rage down to a minimum. Let me go back one more. We do carry phones, again, in case some people that nowadays don't have a phone, we're able to provide them some assistance and direction. We are not a repair company. We will provide only emergency services. We've had people, can you change my oil? Can you do this? Can you do that? No, we can't. Our goal is to get you from unsafe to safe. And we get asked a lot to do that, but we just cannot do that because we don't want to be on the highway, first of all. We need to get you off the highway because it's not safe for us either. So whatever we can do to make it safe for you as quickly as possible and open up those lanes. Some of the incidents that we respond, this one over here on the left, you'll see that tractor trailer came off the 375 flyover and landed on the gateway. It's hard to believe there was no fatalities, but these are some of the situations that we run into when we work with both fire, PD, and EMS. Critical incidents, these are just the types of incidents that we respond. I put critical incident there because the last one that was at that highest level, some of you may remember, was the shooting incident that we had that was coming throughout the interstate, that they caught up to the person there at 375 flyover and I-10. That was probably one of the biggest incidents because there was a large spread of traffic control, a large spread of isolating the incident, et cetera. So, we work well with PD, fire, and EMS in managing and mitigating some of these incidents. And again, these are just the levels of incidents. Lane blocking incidents are a priority, obviously, to us, again, because of the TxDOT initiative. Next. Here's where I come to help you all, or you all come to help us. The Move Over Law and the Move It Law. The Move Over Law, super important for us because as we're working on the highway, the law states that you need to either move over or slow down to 20, less than what the mileage is for that posted speed limit. Super important for us because we are working there 80 miles an hour trying to get people to help, both law enforcement and SO, PD, fire. People just have a total disregard about that. We always ask people to be aware of that, give us that extra lane, and just move over for a little bit and come back in, but it never happens. The Move It Law, obviously, if there's no injuries and there's a minor incident where there is minor vehicle damage, there are no injuries and the vehicles are drivable, we ask that they relocate those vehicles to a much safer location, whether it's, we don't even would like for them to be on the shoulder, but more so get off the interstate completely. We find this difficult because the first thing they want, I need PD on the scene. Well, PD has limited resources, and while we're in lane 3 at 5 o'clock at Lee Trevino going eastbound, you can only imagine what that does. So if we have to stay there, then we have to set up all our safety, and that means now we're limiting the travel, the open lane, and forever how long the PD is going to take to get there. So these are some of the things that we ask, you all as leaders and as part of the community to be aware of this. Help us out. You see us, give us a little bit of space. If you can move those vehicles, please go ahead and move them. Go ahead. I did a little bit of stats on this. We have to provide performance measures to TxDOT. Since 2020, when we first started to our last complete year of 23, our incidents and our services have gone up over 50%. Our mileage has not gone up significantly, but the amount of work that we're doing and the amount of services that we're providing has gone up quite a bit. I attribute this to the community knowing that we're out there. When we first got out there, people didn't know who we were. Our own law enforcement people were telling us, get away. Who are you? You need to leave. And now we work really, really well hand in hand. And we are, as Annette mentioned, in the last of our 4-year contract. We're going to be looking to renew, obviously, and to grow because there's room for growth here. The community is growing. The construction is coming on. We're not going to be away from construction for quite a period, so we're going to have to be able to deal with that. But we can always look to provide additional services on TxDOT right-of-ways, which are the state highways, because that is who we work for, and those are the areas that we have to be responsible to. Summary, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. On weekends, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Our services are at no cost. And that number is super important because that's going to put you in contact with our dispatch center that will be able to get people out there to assist. Next, I think here's the questions. If anybody has any questions.
This is a great program, though.
Yes.
Thank
But
you.
it is.
The community loves us. I mean, we're out there to help. A lot of us come back with backgrounds in the public sector, whether we were fire, PD, or law enforcement. So we know what that is. We know people are in bad situations, and we just want to help them get them, somewhere safe.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Good.
Thank you.
Bundy.
Please.
Oh, and Frank did remind me that NPO does fund a portion of that, and so some of you are on the NPO. If you want to just
Give them more money.
make the connection between the two.
Think about
And
us,
then-
ladies.
At this point, Frank, you said that you at times do go out to Culberson when requested?
So we do go as far as Van Horn, but it has to be on the TxDOT request. We take care of that I-10 and I-20 split because it's so important for this area. I mean, if we have those shutdowns, the snowstorms, the backups, it just creates havoc for us out here. So we're able to be out there to clean up those lanes, clean up those accidents, keep that traffic flowing both ways.
And I don't know if law enforcement is aware of this.
Not a clue. I wasn't, but I'd love get information.
Yes. So, and the way we end up getting it, we will look at weather events because we plan further out. We're aware of that. But DPS and law enforcement is able to call us out from within our own patrol area. So DPS, we've been as far as, obviously Clint, Tornillo, Favens, DPS requesting our assistance.
What about 62-180?
If law enforcement calls for us.
Because that's a big need. We have major
We can get out
incidents
there.
there. Okay,
Get
well,
out there.
yeah, we'll connect in with our law enforcement and make sure they know.
Yes,
Thank you for all you do. This is awesome.
thank you all. You all be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and we have some notepads that you all decide you want to take. So,
You will hand those out.
thank you. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. You want to move on to item number 4?
3, yes, sir.
3.
So pretty much from this point out, these will all be action items. The item that I have before you today, I'm requesting Board of Directors approval to allow the council to continue utilizing AECom as the technical consultant for the Upper Rio Grande Regional Flood Planning Group for Region 14. The Flood Planning Group did meet on December the 19th, 2023, and the members voted to stay with the technical consultant AECom for the second cycle of the flood planning program, rather than issuing a procurement. And I know that perhaps this is something that is not done often, perhaps in your in your realm, but we did receive consultation from our outside auditors, as well as our financial consultant, to verify that we were allowed to go forward in this manner. And so what we're looking at doing is, because of the expertise and the experience that AECom has shown for the second cycle, we are requesting board approval to allow us to utilize them for the next round. That round we will be submitting our planning grants to the Water Development Board in February. So I'll come back before you next month asking for approval to submit. And Water Development Board did not require for us to issue a procurement. What they said was you need to follow your own procurement manual. So we did meet with our outside auditors to verify our process to ensure that we were not doing anything that was inappropriate, that was not following our manual. And we did receive acknowledgement from the outside auditors that we are allowed to move forward in this manner. However, because you all are the policy decision makers, I'm leaving it in your hands to make the final decision to decide if we're allowed to continue on with AECom without doing the procurement. And the reason behind that is because it is such a high level of experience and expertise required for this flood planning program. AECom has shown that. We have been very satisfied with the work that they have done. And I feel confident with the planning members making this decision, because most of them are engineers, they're professionals within that world, and they were in agreement as well. So I can answer any questions if anyone has any at this time.
Well, I'd just like to make a comment because I've sat in some of those meetings for flood planning. with ACON, and they seem to be doing a good job as far as the knowledge and the information that they put out to help with this plan. So I'm very happy to be part of that conversation with them. They've been really good about providing feedback, contacting the smaller municipalities as to where we fit in that plan. And I just wanted to make that comment.
And there was one item that I do want to point out that we're not the only planning region who's going to take this step, but we are in the minority. There are at least 3 of us who are going to stay with our consultants. The other regions are going out for procurement.
I'll reiterate what Alders mentioned, and I think it would be really difficult to start over. I think it would put us behind, actually.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
So motion and second approved. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item number 4, these are proposed changes to our personnel manual, and I did not give you the red line and the clean copy. I only provided you with the red line. And so I wanted to highlight some of the items that we've changed. We have done some cleanups with the manual, which include items such as driving requirements, employee conduct and discipline. And the one that I wanted to highlight now is that in our manual, we do state, if this is approved by the board, I do have a change where we stated in the performance evaluations that they have evaluations on a yearly basis. And the reason why I have proposed this to the board is because I know we should always be doing, we should always be doing well in our job. We should always be receiving feedback. I think that has been happening throughout the year. But at times where perhaps we're doing a merit increase and not a performance increase, I think I want to give some flexibility to our staff. We are small. The performance evaluation process is quite arduous. I know you will probably have a lot of fun when you have to do them. And so we think that this would be just a more efficient route to take where we have that flexibility to issue the evaluations as determined by the executive director. And Ms. Valdez, is there anything else that I need to highlight?
No, I mean, I think that the key is just discretion to give human resources the ability to implement these evaluations as needed. So if there's an employee that's demonstrating some sort of performance issue, they can take that action, but they're not stuck to a rigid schedule in terms of how that happens. And it's really more than anything just to provide them with that flexibility.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Agenda item number 5, this is a grant administration contract that we are bringing forward to the board. And this contract will be with the city of Del City. And so we are requesting approval to allow the council of governments to enter into the contract with the city of Del City. And this is to provide grant administration services for a construction grant through funding from the Texas Department of Agriculture, and the grant administration amount would be $30,000. So this funding is coming from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I was initially excited to present 2 contracts to you potentially, but we were unable to go forward with San Elizario because we were at the end disqualified due to some surveys that were not accepted. But this here is construction to allow for the installation of a water well in Del City. And one thing to also note about this in terms of collaboration, partnership, El Paso Water will be assisting on this grant. And so they will be serving as the engineers. So Texas Department of Agriculture, I think for the first time saw an interlocal where it's between one water entity to another. Are there any questions for me?
I would say thank you, and I move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the sign. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passed.
Okay. Board of Directors approval is requested to allow the Rio Grande Council of Governments to enter into a contract with the University of Texas at El Paso. And this would be up for an amount up to $26,725. And we would be utilizing the funds from our fund balance from the water planning group to pay for these costs. The purpose of the contract is to allow for the population study to occur for our planning region, excluding El Paso. So you can see the counties that are noted there. And the reason why we're not including El Paso County is because El Paso Water is paying for that study on their own. So those of you who have been involved in the water planning program, there have been some major concerns with the population estimates that have been provided by Water Development Board. And so the planning group would like to utilize their portions of their fund balance to do the study, to be able to have an opportunity to provide those alternative numbers to the Water Development Board for consideration.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve this item. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
All right. On agenda item 7, this is the climate interlocal with the city of El Paso. We are asking for board approval to allow us to enter into this interlocal agreement with the city of El Paso. And the purpose is to assist with the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, regional climate related program objectives. The city of El Paso will serve as the lead organization. And the city of El Paso is asking for participation from all of the incorporated communities within El Paso County, as well as Hudson. And there's no financial impact to the council of governments. We have been informally participating in this initiative, but this formal process will allow us to get to the next step where once the plan is submitted, there will be more opportunities for the consortium to apply for additional funding. And so Judge McKenzie did have this on her agenda for Commissioners Court most recently, and it did pass. So that's a good thing. So yeah, just a lot of collaboration going on. I know this could be maybe considered a hot topic. I know it was for a lot of the residents in El Paso when that was presented to the city council, but I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
I would just say, this is an opportunity to kind of stick our neck out to all work together towards a lot of opportunity. I think there can be some better communication. If you can help with that, with better communication within the organizations, that would really help and keep us in on next steps. I know you have been, and I want to continue that because we still have been missing out on some things.
Yes, definitely.
And did you want the meetings also?
We would love, yes.
Meeting notifications?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have been fortunate enough to, keep the hybrid process. So when you can come in person, that's great, but the virtual option has been afforded as well. So we'll continue with that. And then in terms of the communities, City of El Paso has asked for each of the entities to bring this forward to their city councils or commissioners for approval. So I believe Horizon City has already been approved. I don't know about San Eli, if you all have approved it yet, but El Paso County still has yet to put that on their agenda. But Christian has been working with us on that. And so I think that's going to get going. But City of Socorro, I think most recently passed it, or is that going to be at your February meeting? I'm trying to remember.
Probably on the next one.
The February one, but we do have it. We've got to get these in at least by mid-February. So that way we can submit all the documentation with the climate plan that's due on March 1st.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Motion made, motion made to approve this item. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, I have only 2 more. So the next agenda item is WSP. This one has taken quite some time in terms of getting to this moment in terms of our conclusion with them, but I am asking for Board of Directors approval to allow the Rio Grande Council of Governments to terminate our contract with WSP USA for technical consultant services for regional water planning. So the very first agenda item I brought to you all was for flood planning. This one is for water planning. And so we have been utilizing WSP for this since the inception of the 6th cycle. WSP was identified as the top finalist in terms of the procurement. And one of the primary reasons was because we had Jennifer Jackson as the project manager. She is no longer with WSP. There have been some concerns in terms of the support that she was able to obtain from the firm and being able to continue on with this program. And so she has now departed. And the team that was provided to us by WSP, the water planning group was not of the opinion that they were sufficient in the experience that was needed to carry through the water planning process. And so the request is for us to terminate our agreement with WSP. And then our next agenda item will be to issue an RFQ to seek new services. We did ask for this mutual termination with WSP. And if I may ask Ms. Valdez to just explain the process, they somewhat agreed to separate, but I want Ms. Valdez to let us know what are some possible remedies.
Right, so I just want to say this is kind of an unusual situation. It's not very often that you all as a board have been asked to terminate an agreement that you've approved. But in this case, due to the departure of the key individual that was tasked with this particular service and the discomfort level amongst the committee with respect to the team that was proposed, which included, I don't believe anyone on the proposed team had any experience with respect to work on this type. And so, what we have, and I want you all to be fully apprised of one of the issues. The contract termination provision is very specific in terms of the circumstances that would warrant termination of the contract, okay? And it really goes to a material change in the services. I would argue that the departure of the key individual who was proposed as part of the initial proposal would constitute a material change that would warrant your termination. Now, they are going to they initially pushed back a little bit to say that they didn't believe that constituted a change that would warrant termination. However, in response to our request for mutual termination, they've stated that they will agree to go ahead and final invoice the COG to terminate services, but they wouldn't go that step further to say they were mutually agreed. Okay. Now they did say they hope to work with the COG again in the future, and they were invited to provide another proposal at a future date if they so choose. But I think it's also critical for you all to know that another COG is in the same predicament and has gone through the same process, and Annette has been very good about communicating with them. They've gone the same route that our COG is going, and they received the same response. So will they ultimately sue with respect to this termination issue? They'd have a 4-year statute of limitation to do so. Will they actually do that? I'd be very surprised for a number of reasons. I think it would be bad form. They burned some bridges there, and I do think we have a good faith argument in terms of the circumstances that warranted the termination. And I anticipate we'll have some contract defense if it were to go into some sort of litigated matter. Okay, so again, unusual situation, but we've proceeded very cautiously. Annette has done a very good job of being diligent in her communications with this other COG, and we've let the committee know they're well aware of what these issues are. So if there's any questions, we're happy to field those.
Do you have a question? No questions from the
I move to terminate the contract.
motion made by Judge McKenzie and seconded by Commissioner McGee. Terminate the contract, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so our last agenda item, which is a follow-up to the most recent item, is board approval to allow the Council of Governments to post a request for qualifications for a technical consultant to prepare the regional water plan as required by the Texas Water Development Board for Region E. We do have a short timeline on this one. If we are approved to post the request for qualifications, we're giving a 2-week turnaround for those engineering firms who are interested in submitting a proposal. So we will be, we're following our steps. We're putting it in the paper. We're posting it on our website, both at the COG and on the water planning side. We'll post it on the Secretary of State. And then we also will send out the proposal to at least 5 engineering firms through email. So if allowed, those are the steps that we'll be taking to bring back to you an engineering firm that we feel is qualified to carry through the process of the water planning group.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion made and seconded Motion made by Representative Mello and seconded by
Meredith.
Meredith Padilla. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
Hey, so for agenda item 10, this is the Rio Grande Council Government Solid Waste Advisory Committee TCQ Conformance Review, and it'll be presented by Marisa Quintanilla, Regional Services Director.
Good morning, Board of Directors, Marisa Quintanilla. This is an informational item regarding TCQ's conformance review. The purpose of this item is just to inform the board of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, Solid Waste Permit and Registration. Just wanted to go ahead and bring this forth in terms of what our contract states with TCQ in the review for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to review the air permits and the solid waste permits and registration applications. So we sought direction just because we always receive so many of these permits and renewals, and we just needed to ensure that we are complying with our contract. So in November, the end of November, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee went ahead and reviewed and provided favorable comment for the following permits and renewals that you have on your agenda item. So since we sought clarification thereafter, TCQ is letting us know that basically the Solid Waste Advisory Committee is only required to review solid waste management reviews and permits. So anything only related to landfill is what we are required to do. So in the past, we have brought forth the conformance review application and comments from the committee, from the advisory committee. We will no longer be doing those for any of those, with the exception of just landfill permits and renewals. Any questions for me?
Okay, so then we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 10.
Great.
11, I'm sorry, I apologize. This is the 24-25 Solid Waste Advisory Committee membership, and it will be presented by Marisa.
The Board of Directors wanted to go ahead and request approval on the submittal of the revised 24-25 Solid Waste Advisory Committee membership and resolution affirming the committee's makeup to TCQ's Waste Permit Division. We did have quite a few vacancies on this committee, and as per the direction received in FY23, beginning part of 24, we went ahead and notified each of those jurisdictions where a vacancy existed. And we also went ahead and notified the public of the vacancy in case we did have any public individuals that would like to go ahead and participate on these committees. So we did those, and we did those notifications. Behind your agenda item, you will see that now it is a more filled advisory committee. We do have some of the vacancies already nominated and appointed. And so you have that committee makeup behind that agenda item. We are still having a couple of vacancies, but as soon as we get those members appointed, then we'll bring back a revised roster.
And Marisa has been hitting the pavement with these solid waste appointments, and so she's been at city council meetings, commissioner court meetings, anywhere they'll take her to ask for the vacancies. And there's only, at this point, 2 that still need to be filled. Is that correct, Marisa?
Right. So City of El Paso, I'm still waiting to hear from Nick Ibarra. And then I'm also Doña Ana County.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve.
So
Second.
Motion made by Representative Mello and seconded by Commissioner Dean. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so the next agenda item, number 12, this is the fiscal year 2025 Rio Grande Council of Governments Far West Texas Regional Community Preparedness grant application, and this will be presented by Marisa Quintanilla.
Board of Directors approval is requested on the submittal of the FY 25 Homeland Security Grant Division Community Preparedness Grant application in an amount to not exceed 74,684.70 to fund for the project titled Rio Cog Far West Texas Regional Community Preparedness, and authorizing the Executive Director to serve as a grantee authorized official to the Office of the Governor Homeland Security Grants Division. The authorized official is given the power to apply, accept, reject, alter, or terminate the grant on behalf of the Council of Governments. Behind your agenda item, you do have a executive summary, and then you do have the resolution. Just a little bit about this program. This will be our second year in operating the Community Preparedness Program. This is involving and having citizen participation in community emergency response teams, your CERTs. And so we've actually had the tribe hosted a CERT basic training in November, and then we here at the COG went ahead and held the trainer in the first week of December. So now we're going to go ahead and take some of those trainings out to the region. We're looking at doing the basic training CERT class the latter part of February, and then moving forward with another train the trainer, and eventually doing a CMI course as well. So again, this is basically, getting whether it be jurisdictions in terms of departments, employees, or even just community members to participate and become part of a CERT team. Should there be a disaster, they would be the first individuals to provide that assistance until first responders arrived.
Any questions? This is an action item. Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mayor Renteria, seconded by Commissioner Leo. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, agenda item 13. This is the State Homeland Security Grants application for the Rio Grande Council of Governments Regional Planning Initiative, and it will be presented by Marisa Quintanilla.
Board of Directors approval is requested on the submittal of the FY 25 Homeland Security Grant application in an amount not to exceed $69,000. This is for our planning grant initiative, and also authorizing the Executive Director to serve as the grantee's authorized official to the Governor's Office as the authorized official who is given the power to apply for, accept, reject, alter, or terminate the grant on behalf of the Council of Governments. Behind the agenda item, you do have an executive summary as well as the resolution. This is basically the funds that we use for staff to assist jurisdictions in the development of the THIRA, which is your threat hazard document, as well as your SPR, which is your state preparedness report, implementation report, data collection, all the documents that are needed for the state to be able to apply the funding methodology for those dollars to come to our region. So on this grant, it'll be our 9th year applying for this grant under Homeland Security.
Move to approve. Further questions?
Nello?
You decide between Commissioner Aguilera and.
I think she got it.
All right. Okay,
Okay.
I don't want to choose.
No.
We have that.
Well, sorry.
All those in favor? Yeah.
All those in favor, sorry, you threw me out.
I'm sorry.
Motion was made and seconded. Do we approve? Motion to approve? Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
You and I can't talk to each other anymore. Okay, the last agenda item is going to be the State Homeland Security Grants application, and this is for the Rio Grande Council of Governments Regional Interoperable Communications, and it'll be presented by Marisa Quintanilla as well. And this is a really, I think, great. It took us a long time to get here. It's only been, I think, probably 15 years, but no, that's okay.
So when I step away, from the podium, that means we're going to have a discussion. So this is a new application for us, and there's a lot of collaboration and coordination that has taken place since October of 23 to today to get us here. The first responders preparedness planning group is the group that prioritizes the applications for Homeland Security. Discussion was held in October by the committee because it just seems that all jurisdictions, it's been over 2 decades since 9/11. And so some of these communication systems are end of life. And even the vendor, whether it be Motorola, Harris, the support for those communication infrastructures are not there anymore. So it's gone to that point where we really, instead of having all jurisdictions just apply for 2 or 3 radios, the committee tasked Carl Friede from City of El Paso Fire Department, as well as Frank Mendez, City of El Paso Fire Department communications experts as our subject matter experts to go ahead and evaluate all the communication needs within the COG region. And so from El Paso all the way to Brewster County. Dovetailing with that, we went ahead and invited DPS to assist us with some site coverage maps for all our jurisdictions. Kind of wanted to see where some of the weak points are in terms of the repeaters, the coverage, any spillover coverage that's going into Mexico. How can we go ahead and redirect some of those panels so we will capture all the coverage within our area? So that actually happened as well in November. Frank, Carl, Bree, and myself, we met with each of the jurisdictions. We talked about their infrastructure. We talked about where they wanted to be and how we were going to get there. And so getting there is going to take a lot of work from all of us. So we have a strategy, and we're hoping that this will something that will work for all of us. So the First Responders Committee went ahead and approved for the Council of Governments to submit an application for interoperable communications under Homeland Security, and for us to be able to go ahead and purchase either mobile radios or portable radios. This is the application. So we're requesting that permission from the Board of Directors to allow us to submit that application, not to exceed that 490 something.
492.
Yep, 492,000. And so that application is due February 8th. There's a couple of fund sources that we're going to try to leverage in terms of, I mentioned the strategic plan or the roadmap on how we're going to do this. Obviously, 492,000 is not going to get us a lot. It's not going to get us a lot of mobiles. It's not going to get us a lot of portable radios. So if you all recall, back March of 23, the Council of Government submitted a regional application under Congressman Gonzalez's community funding program. We submitted an application for 11 million. That application included mobiles, portables, and repeaters. And so the recommendation currently with Congressman Gonzalez's office is that we were recommended 300,000 from that 11 million. So fast forward, and I'll lean on Judge McKenzie to provide information on where we're at with that discussion or that ask with Congressman Gonzalez. I know that Judge McKenzie was able to become aware that there was additional dollars. And so you want to take it from there, Judge?
Sure. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, I learned that Congress increased the amount of appropriations by 20%. So we're going back to Congressman Gonzalez's office and met with their team and was she their policy legislator?
Rachel?
Yeah. To see if we can't go back with a letter basically signed by everybody in the region, a part of this, to say, okay, we understand there wasn't enough to give us more funding. It was just the 300,000, but now that we're aware that you've received an additional 20%, can you bump it up to at least 3 million is what we came up with. So that's where we are right now, is to go back. Whether or not we get it, we don't know. But I think it's a really good exercise too in the region, all banding together and saying, hey, we're here, we really need this. This is out of date or non-existent. And then with that meeting that we had with the office as well, they're really gonna handhold us through the next series of appropriation requests, because the fact of the matter is what the second year of appropriations in 15 years. So it's really new for everybody in the whole country. So we've had really good conversations, and the next step is a letter. It's been a good exercise in collaboration, I have to say, from 3.5 years ago when I started to date. I really feel like the rural and urban have banded together to recognize interoperability is critical. You know, it doesn't matter who or where you are, we need to be able to talk. So it's been refreshing. We hope we get it. We're gonna fight for it, but we're learning and really hopeful.
So hypothetical, we only have the 492,000 from SHSP. We get the 300,000 from Congressman Gonzalez's office, where that's about 700,000. Okay, that will either be focused solely on portables or mobiles. At this point, right now, the committee and the subject matter experts, they're still, we have a road plan, a roadmap, and based on, levels of priority is basically how perhaps that's going to be determined. It's going to be based on where that recommendation then is going to be moved forward to the first responders preparedness group to make that determination. So just allow me, if we used the $700,000 just for portables, and we know we still have a shortfall, keep that shortfall in mind. There's another grant that's called the Series Grant. That's the grant that we use to get your upgrades for Horizon in 23. That Series Grant is called the Statewide Radio Infrastructure Communications Fund. That is only for communication infrastructure. Those are for your repeaters. So the thought process is we already have quotes for the repeaters and who's needing to upgrade and who needs to go ahead and flash the repeaters or what enhancements they need. That fund source is capped at 2 million. So right now, the repeater quote is a little bit about over $1 million. We're waiting for Presidio County because there's some challenges with the sites. Of course, they have to go on the mountain and things of that, the terrain. So right now we're about 1.2 million. So we can go up on the request for the series to 2 million. And only councils of governments and state agencies are eligible to apply. My intent is to bring that application forth to you. The request for approval to submit in February, because that application's due the 14th of March. So we got, in essence, the repeaters covered. So some of the portables will be covered under SHSP and Congressman Gonzalez. The remaining portables and mobiles, the thought process is to go ahead and in 25, when Congresswoman Escobar and Congressman Gonzalez put out their application process, is whatever didn't get funded under SHSP, then put in that application for those two, for mobiles, the remaining of the mobiles, remaining of the portables and the mobile radios. That's the only way we're going to be able to kind of bring everybody up to par. And then obviously the following year is basically that in itself will bring up everybody to have encryption, to be able to have a P25 ready radio, because there's difference between radio and compatible. Compatible, you would still have to come back and put more money into it to make it ready. And then it also would serve for trunking. So even though some of the regions, the rural regions don't need the, rural jurisdictions don't need the trunking, eventually we need for them to tie into a regional communication system. So having that already in the radio is going to cost less today than it's going to cost in 2 years, because it's going to be more money. So the second year would be in 25 to go ahead and tie into a regional system. And then the third year is to tie into the state system. So that is the plan.
So,
Can I make a comment?
yes,
I feel
ma'am.
like Marisa is talking about this like it's sad and we didn't get this money, but like just the conversation of everyone agreeing to these tie-ins and the equipment is huge.
Yes.
I think the plan is ambitious, but I bet y'all can do it. And I think even just getting to this point to have the plan is a huge accomplishment. And we're really grateful to Marisa for doing all that work.
Yes.
Definitely.
You've been herding cats. You've been sitting in a rocking chair and this has really been, it's been really good conversation. And I feel like every meeting more and more we're understanding and getting together. So this, I think for the region is monumental. I agree with you.
And Alderman Gandu was also part of the meeting in Marfa, and that was very, very well attended. And Alderman, I don't know if you want to add.
No, it just makes sense that we kind of work together instead of against each other. Or when it comes to grants, a lot of times each municipality is fighting for those dollars and we all put in an application and it breaks it down to how much is awarded. So some of us get it, some of us don't. But as a region, if we get together and let the COG initially manage and run the grant, it'll provide an opportunity for all of us to get what we need. It just makes more sense to do it that way. I just thought that conversation was really, really good. There was some good points made from some experts and some people that deal with that. And we need it. We do need it.
And also just wanted to make mention lastly is that it is a somewhat of a task for the council of governments to be able to purchase the equipment and then transfer the equipment. But we know that who better entity than the council of governments to be in that position, because then it makes it that much more efficient for the communities as well to be able to take on a transfer rather than procuring it on your own. So Melissa's been fighting hard for that as well. So that's where you'll see these regional applications coming in addition to this one.
And I know that County Judge Portillo was there, also Judge Hennington, Judge Evans, they were at the meeting in Marfa as well. Judge Urias and the Sheriff Carrillo and his EMC, their EMC also participated virtually. So, it does. It speaks volumes just to be able to say, okay, let's see where the priorities are. Let's go ahead and bring them up to par, and then we'll get everybody, phased in. So.
Did you need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Representative Nettles, seconded by Alderperson Cantu. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on our last item. This is our second to last because you have a report as well if you'd like to provide. But
Yes.
just quickly under the executive director's report, we were presented with an opportunity to participate in a certified public manager program at the state level with our state association. So I have attended my first course of the first track, which is personnel administration. This is going to be a 7-track program with 3 classes in each. So I will not complete the program until 2025. But one thing that's important to note is that there is not a presence of a CPM in El Paso. So that's something that I would want to look into to see if perhaps we can bring a chapter here, because I think it brings great benefit. So so that's that. And then the other item is that I know there were several of you who did attend, but recently our Commissioner Robinson passed away just a little bit before Christmas time. And we were, both Marisa, Yvette, and myself were in attendance for Commissioner Robinson's funeral. And I think that it's just important to note that he did so much for our council of governments. He was always looking out for both urban and rural interests. But I definitely learned a lot more about Commissioner Robinson and how giving of a person he was. And just as a reminder that we should perhaps want to follow in his footsteps in some way, somehow. So I wanted to just make that acknowledgement. And then finally, just wanted to note, and some of you have already been talking about this, but this will be Representative Vanello's last Board of Directors meeting here at the Council of Governments. But we are hopeful that she will be with us in a different capacity. So we just, again, want to recognize Representative Vanello, your tenacity. She definitely has serving as a president for the Council of Governments as well as on the First Responders Committee, Criminal Justice, I think definitely have been able to learn some some tricks of the trade with Representative Manello in terms of how to be able to provide your position and then also get everyone else on board as well. And so we're just so thankful for you to be in our presence. And since you have also lived in a rural life in Marfa and Fort Davis, as well as El Paso, you have just been so on top of ensuring that there is equity, which is something that is always a concern for our member government. So thank you, Representative Manello.
Thank you, Mark.
And we're gonna pass out some cupcakes, so if anybody wants an enormous cupcake that will be your dinner as well as your breakfast and lunch, please feel free. And so that will conclude my executive director's report. Is there anything you'd like to mention for President?
You just stole the thing.
Stole your-
You did.
Okay.
But Representative Nello, it's been an honor working with you. I still have one more day to see you.
Yeah.
So you talked about being tenacious. She's like,
That's a
man,
understatement, right?
my way or the highway. So
Everyone's
So-
so laughing. They just
so
don't
we
appreciate
came into council together. We're gonna leave together. We heard a little bit earlier than me. So it's been an honor. It's been, much love, much success in your future. Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, that was
That was a weak eye.
Aye, weak
Everyone
eye.
leave, right?
one more time. All in favor? There you go. Videos, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.